Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zelinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome to the No Woman Left Behind show. I'm Rosie Zelinskas. Today we're talking to Stacy Kahan, who is going to talk about being a better leader. Stacy says that insurance is not only in her blood, it's something that she's passionate about. She gets to discover what people's dreams are for their businesses and their personal lives, and then use insurance to help them get there. And she makes it a firm commitment to absolutely every client that they will walk out the door in a better position than when they met. Stacy is going to dive into providing feedback as well as having a solid succession plan in our conversation. So stay tuned. Stacy, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Stacy, I know that you are an employee benefits expert and that you started your company way back in 1994. But before that, I know that you were in corporate. Why did you leave corporate? What made you leave corporate?
I realized going back that many years that in order to have a family, have some balance, it really could not happen at a C-suite level. So I felt that it was imperative that I went out on my own to allow me to have the balance I needed to grow a family, grow a business, and literally have a balanced life.
That means, to me, that answer means that you were working a ton of hours when you were in corporate.
Sure. And I don't think it actually changes when you have your own business. It actually is a different kind of pressure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I know that you have a lot of experience in leadership, and we know that a lot of times managers are so busy in their day-to-day that they don't really have a ton of time to develop their team. But can you, obviously you have a team of your own. How do you keep your team engaged? What is it that they do so that they can be vested in the work?
Well, we have to do a number of things. I think the first thing that's most necessary with any team is good feedback. Without good feedback, you have nothing. So we start with that is as we're working with our team weekly, initially giving them the feedback that they need to be successful. Then it becomes in longer stretches. But I think leadership involves that. It involves challenging your people. And I think thirdly, it actually involves having an open door. So even though they're challenged, they know that when they run up against a wall, they have somewhere to go to get the answers. And my feeling is there's no question in which there's any dumb question, any dumb answer. I'm willing to, if anyone asks, I'm willing to give them the answer.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you have your two beautiful daughters. I actually saw a picture of you online in the office with your daughters, which I'm assuming they're your daughters, but it was pretty obvious. First of all, that is a beautiful picture because the three of you leading your team in general, I think is fantastic. And I know that you have a succession plan for your team. How did you come up with a succession plan for them?
It's actually the hardest part of a business is growing it, but secondly, figuring it how to keep it alive, even if you're not as involved. I was lucky enough that my two daughters did come into the business, but I never thought they would come into the business. I had a few different women that I had brought up that I thought could succeed me, but in the end, they just didn't have the talent to run a business, really be a business developer, and manage people well. They just couldn't do it all.
So as a manager, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because in corporate, obviously we have a ton of women that are managers, and they're trying to balance, like you had said, at the very beginning, trying to balance their life with their work responsibilities. And if they are a manager, they do have a team of people. And so I was curious to kind of hear, what are some maybe like 2 or 3 ideas that you have as to what a manager can do to either develop their team or engage them more in the work if the employee is not necessarily engaged in their work?
Well, I think first off, you have to be a photocopy of what you want people to be. So that means having a balanced life, allowing people to fail in order to grow. So I really think that the tips are understanding how each of your people ticks to give them the tools to be most successful. I think that's the first thing, and every single person is different. So you really have to get that feedback on one-to-one where they are to help them. It's not cookie cutter.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, I know that I have known of various different assessments that you can use, and the Strengths Finder I know is a really good one that as a manager, well, obviously the employee has to take the assessment, but as a manager, it really helps you identify those strengths and those weaknesses for your team so that you know what assignments to assign to them. Because I just had a situation or I talked to someone where they were like screaming, yelling, kind of just calling attention to their manager saying, pick me, kind of like donkey pick me. And the manager was like, nope, and then they give it to another person, but that person had the strengths for that particular project. So I think it's really important as a manager to, like you said, know your team, know their strengths so that you can play on their strengths and then give them the projects that they can best do, right?
Well, it's funny you say that because we actually went through a year of Colby, starting with each of our team taking the Colby index, then evaluating how each person needed to be managed in order to get the best results. But thirdly, and I thought actually the most important was there was a grid. It was a little box where everyone sat. And what we noticed is we hire people that are like us, not necessarily complementing our strengths. So we had a lot of blank spots. And it's very important and imperative that a manager doesn't hire necessarily people that they like, but people that can fill in the spots on the team that are weak.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's pretty enlightening because like you said, managers are going to hire people like themselves. So to hire people with other strengths so that they can fill those spots, I think that's fantastic. You said something earlier, you have to let them fail in order to grow. Let's talk a little bit more about that because I love that. And by the way, before I let you answer that, I am working on a different project where I am researching the confidence, girls' confidence. And I actually found a statistic by a clinical psychologist that says that girls' confidence peaks at age 9. And the reason, so it's incredible. But the reason why I was looking at this is because helicopter parenting may not allow their daughters to fail. And when parents are constantly fixing problems for their daughters, it actually pretty much propels them into not being able to negotiate salary, and it will reduce their salary over a lifetime by like $2 million. So I love that you actually talk about this, fail in order to grow. So now if you can talk about that and what you mean by that.
Sure. Actually, I had the most interesting conversation with a woman that runs a really nice sized tech business. And she said, you sometimes need to let people wear different shirts to figure out where they fit best. And you can look at indexes, but they have to be able to put on that shirt each day and feel comfortable in it and confident. And I think, like you said, if the peak of confidence is 9, what happens? And what happens is, although I did not do this with my children, I said more no than yes, was you have to challenge them and let them fall, let them bleed in order to brush themselves off and move forward. It's exactly that way in life, and it's that way in business.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And actually, another like interesting tidbit that I read about this in this particular article was that some parents are actually going on interviews with their kids, their adult kids, and a few parents actually go to like the day one of the job. And it's like mind blowing that parents, that number one, parents would actually go, and number two, that kids would allow their parents to go with them on interviews and the first day of business. Isn't that crazy?
It's completely insane. Your parents are not going to be sitting next to you. They can coach you.
Yeah.
But you're on your own once you walk out that front door.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Now, I know that you are really, really passionate about what you do, about your work and insurance. Where did you find that passion?
Well, that would be my dad.
Oh.
He started in the insurance business when he was a young man. I watched a balanced life where he was able to help people and grow money so that he was able to give all of us the kind of life he wanted when he was a child that he didn't necessarily have. So I think it propelled me that I loved business, I loved people, and I knew it was a way I could grow a business, have a little bit of flexibility, and really at the end of the day, know the people I touched were in a better place than when I wasn't in front of them.
I love that. So did you know from an early age that you wanted to go into business instead of corporate, or how did you get into corporate and then business?
Well, I worked for a couple big insurance agencies. Women were more secretarial and administrative than in sales, for sure. My first year of $1 Million Roundtable, which is the other side of the business, the life side, 2% were women. That was it. And you looked around and said, okay, how do we mentor women to be different than this? And I think it started at our kitchen table. We were a family of girls besides my dad, and he challenged us every day to be better and be smarter. And at the end of the day, I really was somewhat of a replica of him. And it allowed me the freedom to have a good life.
That's
Just
beautiful.
at the table, which I know is what you always talk about.
Right, exactly. Now, I absolutely love the fact that your dad was challenging you continually, because not many people have that. You know, my dad always challenged myself and my siblings. And every time we'd be like, hey, Dad, I got an A. He's like, why didn't you get an A plus? Or if you got a raise or something, or started a job, for example, my very first job was like, Dad, I got a job. Oh, did you ask for a raise? So, you know, obviously he's kidding. But at the same time, I love the fact that your dad was challenging you. And did you have siblings, like you said, females, male siblings?
I have one sister.
Okay.
She's very different than I. But, you know, we both sat around the table, and she actually went into social work, which is a noble cause, but it's a very difficult place to make a living. So I saw the other side of nobility, and I feel that I'm noble too, but the nobility of being a social worker doesn't really allow you to have much of a balanced life because the cash flow is very tight.
Right, absolutely. Now, I know that you and I had a brief conversation previously, and you said that you have always supported women, raised women up in the world, in your environment. Let's talk to me a little bit about that. How have you done that in the past? How do you think women can raise other women. And obviously this is exactly what we're trying to do here, right? Like my mission is to eradicate the gender gap in the world, in corporate, and I'm doing that by empowering women in their careers, which is why we're having these really important conversations. So tell me a little bit about that. And I know I remember you saying that you're not a jealous person, which is fantastic, because in order for us to collectively raise women up, we need to be able to give back. So I'll let you comment on that.
I think the only way to empower women is to educate us. And it's not just in school, but in finances, in how to seek a job, but not just a low-level job, a high-level job, and push your way to the top. That does require women helping women like men help men. The only way any of us are going to be sitting at the head of these big companies is by pulling each other up.
I love that. It's so interesting that you say educate ourselves, not just in, at work, but in finances. I was in a meeting earlier today, and someone said that unfortunately it was an older woman and her husband had just died. And she didn't know anything about her finances. She didn't even know how to use her computer. And it's like, it goes back to the whole thing about you as a woman, and it's perfectly fine to be married and have a lovely relationship and a partner, but you still have to know what is happening in your finances, what is happening in your household, what is happening, so that when something happens, it's not if, it's when, right? Because we're not all going to live forever, but when something happens, that you're prepared for those finances or financial changes. So, and again, I know that you're an employee benefit. So I want to ask you, so what do you do, Stacy? Like, how do you help people in your business? So tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay. So my background, I have a degree in risk and insurance and finance, which is a long time ago. Immediately went into the insurance business for New York Life. So was selling initially life insurance and disability and long-term care only, and realized really to take a holistic approach to business as a whole, you needed to handle two sides of a person's life, their business life and their personal life. There's a holistic connection that needs to be handled. And I always say, if your business blows, your family's in trouble. But if your family blows, the stress it can put on your business, if there's not enough planning, it can blow the business as well. It comes back to succession planning. It comes back to making sure there's someone that can pick up the pieces if you get knocked out and you're disabled at a young age. Things like that happen. It's exactly what you said. So if you have the planning in place as you're talking to this business owner to think globally initially and then dig deep on both sides, you find where their love is. And many a times that corporate pocketbook can fund much of the personal as well. So you're able to build wealth within your company to build your family. It all really coincides as one.
And that's beautiful too, because it doesn't matter if you're in business for yourself or if you're in corporate, it pretty much is the same thing. As far as we want to make sure that women are advocating for themselves, moving up the ladder, but at the same time, you don't want to be so focused on just your job, your career, your business, that you let your family fall by the wayside, because that's no good either. So what are some ways that you have been able, you talked about balance at the very beginning of our call. So what are some of the ways that you have been able to maintain that balance between being a leader and your personal life?
That's a great question. I will tell you, I've made errors. Actually, my daughter, who had come to work for me, at one point said I was more of a boss than a mother. So we had to figure out the boundaries, right?
Yes.
And the boundaries were actually this, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. No talking about business on Sundays. But my brain's always thinking we have a family dinner. And really the weekend's not a time to talk business. Business was done during the week, and it changed the way that we behaved as a family, as an adult family.
Oh my gosh. So you hit on a couple of things there. I love the whole, uh, you're more of a boss than a mother. I think that's, pretty important to a pretty good distinction, because sometimes when you're a leader, a manager, and especially nowadays, before the pandemic, I drove an hour to and from the office, and I had that kind of time to decompress, debrief, and shift from leader, boss, manager to mom, wife, that kind of thing. And now we're working from home. So so I walk out of my office and I'm still in the go, 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 leader, leader, leader. And so sometimes, like you, I kind of forget to just switch out those hats, right? Because we're home. So you talked about boundaries. I want to talk a little bit more about the boundaries, because I think that's so important. What are boundaries and how do you use them?
In business or in personal life?
Both, either.
I think that what I have learned to raise good children is they need boundaries, for sure. I think people need boundaries because they don't know whether to go far enough or they've gone too far. I believe that boundaries make a person feel more comfortable about the choices they make. Now, with that being said, everyone has very different boundaries. And in work, it's important to explain the boundaries of the business as you're interviewing someone, as you're doing whatever kind of an index to determine if they're the caliber person that can touch your clients that you work so dearly to get and to keep. So I am very black and white when it comes to boundaries. Not a lot of gray with me.
Got it. Now, boundaries are also for people that are in corporate, I think, look like kind of like what you said. You work your 8 to 5:30 or whatever your hours are. And I know that some people that I know, literally physically have to pull themselves away from their computer because they can keep working, for hours. And again, it depends on what your family situation is, right? Because if you have little kids, you're not going to be able to do that. But I don't have any little kids, so there's really nothing, stopping me from staying in front of the computer. But I think it's important for people to set boundaries for their work schedule, specifically now that we're working from home. And when you set boundaries between your work and your life, I think it gives you that balance that we all want so much. And I love the fact that you don't talk business on Sunday or weekends or whatever. So what happens if you think of something on a Sunday and you want to talk about it? Do you write it down? Do you send yourself a message or to address it on Monday? That's awesome.
I write it down. I've learned it's just something that it just makes it much more family oriented. And I think that's really what I learned. I had a life balance coach for 20 years. And his mantra is you wrap your business around your family, not the other way around. Because you know what? You can have a great business, but if you don't have a family at the end of it, because you never make it home or you don't leave your computer, what's the point?
Right. So I know when you're a leader, there's seasons that are super busy and seasons that are a little bit more in a lull. Do you think that in your really busy seasons, you're able to maintain that same balance?
In my later years of business, yes. In my younger years, my first 20 years, we have a crazy season in the employee benefit market. It starts pretty much in August through the end of January. It's, 6 months really. And it was horrible because that was when all our clients were renewing, and that was a governmental thing that happened. So you know what? You have to build more efficiencies. How do you do that? You do it by technology. And so that's what we did. We sat back and said, what do we need to do? And we started building very tight CRMs, ticketing systems, tracking our employees' time in those tasks to determine if they were sitting with the right seat for them, or were they struggling in parts of their job. We can see that. And then we know to either have a long conversation and see if it's a struggle that they're just not good at it and it's killing them, and you put someone else there, or whether through mentoring and education, it's something they can be good at.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to go back to something you said about a conversation. Like, I'm assuming it's going to be a somewhat difficult conversation if someone is not really being successful in what they're doing. So, Stacy, how would you conduct a difficult conversation? What would it look like?
Well, I am a manager that begins with the good things.
Okay.
These are the things I'm impressed with. You make it to work on time. You have your head down and it appears you're doing your job well. But my concern is the dots aren't going together. They're just not coming together. So I need you to tell me what's happening. I like open conversation with people like that. And I've learned, and my children, anyone will say, I ask a question and I shut up.
So why do you ask the question, then you shut up? What is the purpose of you doing that? What is the technique there?
I want someone to think about the question, come back with a response without me interjecting. Because I've asked, I need to listen.
Nice.
2 ears, one mouth.
Right. So I think when it comes to those difficult conversations, it is pretty imperative for a manager to listen. And I think a lot of managers don't know how to listen. What is your technique to really listen to the person that you're talking to?
Well, I think first you look in their eyes, you look at someone's body language, and you try to make a neutral place for them to feel comfortable. So that's first, is that they're going to feel comfortable. We're not going to slay them. We're not going to, they may end up getting fired if things are bad, but I have never had an employee that doesn't know prior to them losing their job that they're not doing well. Never. They know exactly where they stand. Some jobs aren't for some people, as you watch them turning white over, the weeks.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I agree with that. Not everybody is cut out for all jobs. So for sure. Well, I like your technique on really listening to the person, asking the question, then being quiet so that they can kind of think about the question and then talk about whatever their challenges are. So when someone comes to you and says, I'm really sorry, I don't get this, I'm making mistakes, I need help. What is as a leader, what is your method to help develop that person? Because obviously they're coming to you because they want to do well, they are wanting to succeed. You know that if they succeed, you succeed. So what is your method to help someone that is struggling in their work?
I think it becomes almost a business value, which is we really work hard on writing down the tasks in what we call a playbook. I think that having a reference or a playbook is what we call it, allows that person to be independent to try to figure it out. But like, if it's going to take you 3 hours to figure out, do not do that. But they need to try, they need to be challenged. They need to try to figure it out. If it's 20 minutes, then we need to figure out, if we're not explaining it right, because maybe it's us, maybe it's not them. But if they do it 2 or 3 or 4 times, then there's obviously an issue that needs to be addressed.
I love that, because I think the biggest thing is if you come to anyone with a question, kind of have 1 or 2 ideas on what you either already did or you could do, so that you're not having the other person solve the situation for you, right? Because as a leader, you have your own day going on. And if someone comes to you and says, well, I have this problem. Okay, well, what did you do about it? Like, what have you done so that I can know how to direct your, that kind of thing. So I think it's really important for them to do a little bit of troubleshooting before they come to you and say, I need help with this. But like you said earlier, no question is dumb. No question is off the table. If someone needs help, then obviously by the time they come to you, they probably have tried a few things.
Yeah.
Well, Stacy, this has been such a great conversation, but I do want to pick your brain a little bit further. I would like for you to share a couple of actionable tips that a leader can do in order to lead their team. So do you have a couple of tips that you can share with us today?
I do. My favorite tip, and it has taken me through almost 40 years of business, is I inspect what I expect. So I do. I need to see it. I need to read it. I need to feel it in order to make sure my team is doing the work that I expect to be done in the way I want it done. And I think the second thing is, as women, we still have a long road ahead to have a real seat at the table. It behooves all of us, with our power and our ability to move each other up, to do it, not just talk about it, but make it actionable. So I have done that with many women as they've come into our business. I think the insurance business is an unbelievable business for women. It allows you some flexibility and the ability to help people while making a nice living. So everyone needs to find that niche that feels right for them. But if you feel like you're at a dead end, now is the time to go out and look for a different job. You can be good at it, and bring women around you that can bring you up, that can help you.
Those are amazing tips. I love it. And I think the second one I love more, because they say that the 5 people that you surround yourselves is what you're kind of reflective of, right? So you're absolutely right. So if you're in a job, for those listening, that you're not happy with, then do something different. Like the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right? So do something different. Ask people. There's tons of women. Stacy's contact information will be in the blog, so you can always reach out to Stacy. And Stacy, is there anything more you want to do about what you offer in your business or anything like that?
I think that for women, the thing, and we're actually going to spend some real time on it, is teaching women about finance and risk. Again, a lot of people don't understand where they are. We can help you. And we can help put you in the direction so that you can feel comfortable in your life. And that's
I love
work that we do.
I love that, Stacy. Thank you so much. So, all right. So everybody, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for Stacy for your time here today. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we're going to have all of Stacy's contact information in the blog. And have a wonderful rest of your day today.
All right, so that is a wrap with Stacy. I had such a great conversation with Stacy. I just love her. She's just so nice to talk to. So Stacy obviously was so wise, and I think that she brought a tremendous amount of value to you. So I hope you do as well. So just to recap Stacy's 2 tips. The first tip is inspect what you expect. She said that she likes to see, read, and feel the work that her team is doing in order to make sure that the team is getting it done the way she wants the work to be done. So I think that's a great one, because she doesn't wait till it's all the way done. She's kind of inspecting it along the way. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is, as women, obviously, we still have a long way to go to deserve that seat at the table as the norm. So it behooves all of us to work with our power and our ability to move each other up, not just talk about it, but make it actionable. She says to bring women around you that can build you up so they can help you and you can help them in return. So with that, if you have any questions about our episode today, or If you have any suggestions on career development topics that you would like me to cover, by all means, send me an email, send me a DM. My contact information, as well as Stacy's contact information, is going to be on my blog on nowomanleftbehind.com website. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends, because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.